everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's me and Nate back again. We're here. It's spring. It's almost April. It's very exciting, even though we are doing that Midwest thing where it just kind of catapults back and forth between 42 degrees and 70 degrees. So that's fun for everybody who has a bad knee or sinuses in the Midwest, the entirety of all these states. So enjoy all of it, everybody. Nate, how's things on your side of the pond?
I mean, weather-wise, it's a little bit gray today. It did rain last night, but up until very recently, we were having this uninterrupted stretch of really, really nice weather. And typically in the end of March, you don't get weather like this. So it was pretty cool having just like cloudless days, sun and warmth, etc. You know, went running a couple times, rode my bike a bunch. Just a reminder that it can actually be very nice here. British news media is stupid. Politics is stupid. Everything is dumb in that regard. But yeah, I'm looking forward to like, call it April 1 through October 1 is the sort of half of the year in this country where it's like, it's not going to be guaranteed summer, nice weather, but the possibility of it being nice increases massively.
And you get a lot of daylight too, don't you? Like the
Yes.
sun doesn't go down till like 10. Like the opposite side of like, yeah, it's shitty that it's dark at 3:30 in January. However, you get light until like 10 o'clock at night.
That's true. Yes, in the summertime, we just had daylight savings time, and we sprung forward, and so now the sun was coming up at almost 6 a.m. Now it's coming up at almost 7, but it was setting at 6:30. Now it's setting at 7:30. So that's, right at the solstice, basically, or right, not too long after the solstice. But yeah, in December, the sun comes up about 8:05, 8:10, and sets about 3:50. So that sucks really bad. It's dark by 4:30, like dark by 4:30. But in the summertime, the sun is up after 4 a.m., I think, and it doesn't set till like 10-ish, after 10 p.m. And it's not like, it's like dusk till like 10:30, almost 11.
Are you guys going to be doing like getting rid of daylight savings? Because I know that we're finally moving forward on something like that here.
I'm not aware of anything to do that. I really don't know, to be honest with you. The UK at least benefits from the fact that it's a relatively small and narrow country, so it's all in the same time zone. It's not like the US where you've got splits and stuff like that. The UK and Ireland are on the same time zone.
Oh, well, that works out then.
If I'm not mistaken, though, as soon as you cross the channel and go to France, they're an hour ahead of us, I think. I know Germany's definitely ahead of us, but I'm pretty sure France is ahead of us too.
Yeah, and also London is like weirdly on like the same parallel as like what, Maine or something, or New York.
London is on the same latitude as like northern Canada. So if you were on the western coast of Canada, I'm pretty sure London is like, it's about the same latitude as Edmonton. Certainly as far north as Calgary. I think it's actually as far north as Edmonton. But if you then go across the map and you look at how far north that would be in Ontario or Quebec, you realize that like it is far, like London is far further north of Montreal, for example. My brother's in Seattle, and he says that like I think they get about 45 more minutes of daylight in the worst part of winter, darkest part of winter, than we do. So, and I think Indianapolis gets like a full hour and a half more daylight than London does in the wintertime. So yeah, you just get you kind of get used to it. I mean, you never really get used to it. I don't even think British people who are born and raised here are necessarily used to it. They just have the seasonal depression.
Right. They just they've just learned how to like, hunker down and be sad for 4 months.
Yeah, everything's slow and you're kind of sad. Yeah.
This is why so much like, depressing music came out of the 70s and shit. Like the entirety of the Smiths is just, writing songs in the winter.
Smiths is from the 80s, but yeah, you're correct. Also, they're from further north of London, so they're from
That's
from
even
Manchester.
worse, man. It's even worse up there.
It's
darker and darker and colder. And you become the boy with a thorn in his side turns out to be an icicle.
Christ.
Anyway, fuck, where else were we gonna... Oh, we were talking, before we started recording, we were talking about you went to a concert last night. That's exciting. It's exciting that people are going out and doing things, and we're all going to get COVID again, but at least, this brief moment of time, we're going to have some enjoyable times with it. Personally, very excited about going out to see shitty summer blockbusters in theaters again. Mostly because like I went and saw Jackass Forever in theaters. It's the first time I've been in theater, since COVID started, I think. And you know what? There's just something about hanging out with your friends, getting incredibly stoned, and watching a bunch of grown men hurt each other that like really makes you feel like America's back. You know. Uh, so you want what was the show like last night?
So I went and saw Stormzy. This was the tour for his album Heavy as the Head, which came out in 2020, I believe. The tour was announced the end of 2019. I bought tickets for myself and Cynthia to see him live. The date of purchase was 4 December. So before COVID, before the event, aka the 2019 election, I bought these tickets, and it had been rescheduled twice. It was supposed to be September 2020. It got rescheduled to 2021, and then it got moved again. So this was finally we got to see him live. And this was the third of 3 nights. Apparently he brought out Ed Sheeran on the second night. I'm glad I wasn't at that one. But he brought out the rapper Dave, who's a British rapper, and they performed a song they had done together. Like the song was, I think it was Dave featuring Stormzy, and they performed it together. So it was really cool. Like, and it was interesting because, I'm a fan of his. I've listened to a bit of his music, but some of the middle section of the concert was some of the more R&B songs, and then towards the end, it just really, really amped up the full on like energy of it. And he closed with Vossi Bop, and it was insane. I mean, like watching the place go nuts. We were at the O2 Arena. And it seats about 20,000 people, like a hair shy of 21,000 people. And I would say it was probably, it was sold out. I think that not every seat was occupied, but it was well over 90% occupancy. So,
not bad.
When you see a stage, like he looks like a little fit where we were sitting pretty high up, like even with the big projection screens, you still couldn't really see that much, but it was insane. And you could tell for him, it was just like a big moment too. And he's pretty young. He's like 26. So like, just to have it finally work out, it was cool, and the visuals were incredible. The lighting was incredible. The set design was incredible. It's awesome. I think the last concert I'd seen was Janelle Monáe in 2019, and I just like seeing musicians who are good at what they're doing. Like I think the thing with rappers is that like, because so much of the backing stuff is typically not live musicians, like everything's got to be on time. Everything's got to be like there's not really like swing or forgiveness in the sense. Like they've got to remember all the lines. They've got to like keep the energy up, and they've got to like hit the rhythm constantly. So like you could see he was just putting everything physically into it. And it's cool as shit, man. Like it was so like seeing British people actually unironically having a good time. It's just like, wow, Britain could be so nice. Like maybe you think that's cringe for me to say, but like, yeah, watching a thing like that where, it's not.
It's been a hard couple years, Nate, and that's totally understandable.
Yeah, we can. The wages of Corona is that we can be forgiven for being cringe.
Well, and yeah, because like the last 2 years, what have we had to do other than like become even more online, which was like never a good idea in the first place to be online. Like it's a hellscape, it's terrible, nobody should be there. But because like Corona is like, well, we can't go out and do these things, these life affirming things, like going to a concert and being around people and having a lot of like really great positive energy. Like I mean, I'm and for myself, like I've noticed like we have to kind of break ourselves of the I want to stay home, because we have to get back out and do things, because otherwise I'm just going to sit in my home and slowly fall to pieces. So it's a lot of agoraphobia. So I'm glad that you're able to get out. I'm glad that people in England are able to get out and do a bunch of stuff. Like I said, I'm excited about movies. I was never really that big into going to movie theaters before COVID, but I don't watch movies at home because I just don't have like an hour and a half to 2 hour block of time where I'm not interrupted by something. Like, the kid goes to bed at like 8 o'clock, but she goes to bed at 8. She doesn't really fall asleep till maybe 8:20, 8:30. And then we got a shower, and then it's like 9 o'clock. And then like, I like to be in bed with a book by like, 10:15 or so. So, you can't watch a movie there. Weekends, like maybe stay up a little bit later, but then my dog still wakes me up at fucking 6:30 in the morning. So, don't really want to stay up too late on the weekends either. So I need something that kicks me out of that loop. Which, I have a 6-year-old, so that's just how it is at the moment. But I'm excited. I'm excited about being able to go out and do things again. My wife and I are already planning a trip to Memphis and a trip to St. Joseph's, Missouri, where there's a whole bunch of like insane museums up there. So it's good to finally get back out. So go back out and do things, even if it's just little things like go to a concert. Well, I don't know.
I mean, it really depends. The reason why we didn't feel bad going to this concert was because we had both had COVID and we were within the window where it's very unlikely we were going to get reinfected. And it's also, we are past the point of it being contagious on our parts. So, we tested negative and we, are like right about 30 days post being infected. We're both healthy. We're not coughing. We don't have any symptoms. We wore masks on public transit. There was no masking in the venue. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but like at a certain point, you're just like, no one's fucking wearing a mask.
Right,
so like,
not...
if I wear a mask, like it's not really going to stop anything at this point. But also like I'm not necessarily champing at the bit to fucking raw dog the air, but I also feel like I, at least for the next couple of weeks, I'm still within the window of sort of having immune protection, hopefully. And I try to not take stupid chances, but if I'm on the bus, if I'm on the train, I'm gonna wear a mask, mostly just because, I mean, quite frankly, we took the train yesterday and there's a bus strike going on in South London, so the overground, even going north, against the grain for rush hour, was really, really crowded. And Omicron or BA2 is really blowing up here, so you're having I think it was like 1 million new cases a day. Like it's maybe it was 1 million a week. I can't remember. There's a lot of new cases, and way more people are wearing masks on public transit now. I think just because of the fact that like it's now getting bad again, even though the government's not giving any advice or any support, and they're getting rid of free testing and everything. It's getting worse. And on the train, I was just happy I was wearing a mask because people were fucking coughing, and even if it's not COVID, even if it's just like a cold or like the flu or something. I was just reminded of, especially on the Jubilee line and on some of the other smaller trains on the London Underground. And the Overground is about the size of a New York City subway car, maybe a little smaller. The Underground trains are much smaller than New York City subway cars, like very, very small interiors. And so, like when you're in that kind of a space, this is the thought crossed my mind, like, yeah, it's fucking rules to be wearing a mask and not have to wear as much. Because like you're in a hermetically sealed disease tube. I don't think there's anything wrong with wearing masks. And I think I had a friend online, a mutual, who basically said he was wearing a mask in London and someone called him a pedo enabler. And I don't know what the fuck that even means. Like, what do they think? Like, oh, if you wear a mask, then is that because of George Soros and fucking Jeffrey Epstein invented Corona and 5G? Or is it that you're wearing a mask? And
I'm sure there's a very diseased path to go down on that.
Yeah, or it's because you wear a mask and that means CCTV can't recognize you. And so like if you wear a mask, you're encouraging child abduction. Like, I don't know what hysterical imaginary bullshit British people are making themselves mad about today. But I haven't had anybody confront me about wearing a mask ever. No one seems to give a fuck. Maybe that's just South London being cool, or maybe it's the fact that I'm like 6 feet tall and look like I could at least sit on you. I
will admit, every once in a while, I'll be wearing a mask somewhere and I'll see somebody, you can see the range of emotion that goes across their face of how dare you wear a mask, and I don't want to confront you. And not that I'm, physically intimidating in any way, shape, or form, but also like I'm not unintimidating, I guess. Like I'm a 5 foot tall or 5'11", healthy male. Like I'm not going to swing on you. I'm just going to tell you to go fuck yourself. But like, also, like, this is Missouri. You don't know who's got a gun. So, a lot of times that is one of the upsides. Sometimes people just don't fuck with you because they're like, I might get shot if I go talk shit to this guy. So, I mean, we have that, but we also have terrible gun violence. So,
The opposite is true in the United Kingdom in the sense that it's pretty safe to assume no one you encounter is going to have a gun. But because of the fact that no one's got a gun, there's an extent to which you will see, like, it's far easier for people to just get their asses kicked because you can swing on someone and chances are really good they're not going to shoot you. They might stab you. That is true, but they're probably not going to shoot you.
I'll survive a stabbing probably a lot easier than
yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad here. Like, it's not... here's the thing, right? The UK loves to gin up this hysteria about stabbings. And while there is a problem with knife violence in this country, the rate of it is so low compared to America. You'll notice that in American media, they very often don't want to talk about states and cities that have higher rates of violence than big coastal Democrat-run cities. And you look. I mean, we all know American media is right-wing bullshit. Same in the United Kingdom, but it is often interesting to me that people lose their minds about like if crime goes from historically low levels, like the lowest ever recorded, to like 10% higher than the lowest ever recorded. People are losing their minds about crime wave 2022 or whatever the fuck. When a city like St. Louis or a city like Birmingham, Alabama, or a city like Detroit has a murder rate that's like 5, 10, 15 times higher than LA's murder rate or New York's murder rate. And similar things are true in the United Kingdom, in the sense that Birmingham has the highest murder rate in the United Kingdom. I think the murder rate in Birmingham is 1.1 people per 100,000. Now, I would compare that to Birmingham, Alabama, which has a murder rate of something like 22 per 100,000. And that's not even the highest in the South, certainly not the highest in the US. I think the murder rate in Detroit's like 45 per 100,000. That would imply
to kill the shit out of each other here.
That would imply that the murder rate in Detroit is closing in on 50 times higher than the murder rate in the United Kingdom's most murder-prone city. And so it's just one of these things where it puts it in perspective. Like, the UK does have a knife violence problem. In the 90s and 2000s, the city in Europe, not just UK, but in Europe with the highest knife crime and knife murder rate was Glasgow. And Glasgow at the time was something like 96, 97% white, but it's an incredibly poor city and a poor part of the country. So, I mean, that's improved to some extent. And also Glasgow's more diverse now, and Glasgow's not the biggest city for knife violence. But I mean, it's one of these things where, yeah, in this country, chances are really good that you're not going to get shot. Chances are really good you're not going to get stabbed either, because like it's rare that you hear stories. I mean, they do happen, but it's rare you hear stories of like guy got in a fight in a pub and someone pulled a knife on him and killed him. If you get stabbed in a pub, it's normally broken glass from a pint glass. But like last night, we saw people getting thrown out of the venue and like someone who looked barely older than a teenager basically being carried out by 6 security guards. Sort of like, you must have done something to piss them off. You must have really pissed them off.
You punched somebody in the face and they're all taking it out on you.
I was going to guess, actually, it was probably something more to the effect of, from the look on, he was really blackout drunk and he either like harassed someone or just whipped it out and peed in the corner somewhere. And that's why they were throwing him out.
The British love to pee on things in random places.
They were walking his ass the fuck out. They were body walking him out. Yeah, it's oh man, public pissing everywhere. That's a problem. Yeah, people fucking in public is a thing. I've never seen it, but like most everyone I know who's goes out more than me has seen it. It's just randomly people fucking in public here. I think in the sense that like in the UK, if you piss in public, you'll probably get a citation if a cop catches you, or they'll tell you to fuck off, but you won't get charged as a sex offender. Whereas like I've heard stories of people basically having to be registered as sex offenders because they got charged with indecent exposure because they whipped it out to pee in public.
Yeah.
And like, let's be honest,
around here.
It's not a good thing to do that, but like
that's not the same fucking thing as like sexual assault.
Yeah, no. Whipping it out to pee because you're blackout is very different than whipping it out to like flash someone. And I feel like, yeah, American moralism being what it is, like I'm not surprised that happens. That is completely incomprehensible to a Brit, in my perception of Brits at least. But you know what's also incomprehensible to Brits, and now to me, because I don't live in America anymore and I haven't even been home in almost 3 years? I do not understand Madison Cawthorn.
I swear to God, every time like we talk about how is this guy? He got elected. He's been in Congress less than 2 years.
And so he got elected in 2020.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He got elected. He was basically like a full-on Trump own the libs, super online Groyper style guy who basically does a lot of, respect the troops stuff, even though he was never in the military because he was paralyzed in a car accident.
Right. Although if you listen to him, it's because a minority took his place at the Naval Academy. And it turns out, actually, the Naval Academy said, no, go fuck yourself. And then he fucked up his legs. So, and you got to keep in mind the stories of Madison Cawthorn. What he says is like true up to about like maybe about 40% of it. And then there's a lot of backstory that you need to go like, oh, okay. So like, you could have joined, but you didn't get to go to the fancy school, so you decided, fuck it.
I had a friend in high school that I swam with, and he was a good dude, but he always exaggerated his stories. And so his last name started with R, and so another friend of ours made the joke about calling it the R factor, that you divide anything he said by 10 and that's the truth. And it's like, that's kind of how I feel about Madison Cawthorn. And also, I think that's a pretty common refrain. It's I want to say it was Jack Posebich was the guy who said that like he was supposed to go to West Point, but like a black lesbian took his place or something. And this turned out to be completely untrue. Not only for the fact that West Point doesn't pit people together, like the service academies don't pit people together in terms of like they have a quota for how many people of each race they want to accept, and I don't know if it's based on population or it's based on army targets or something like that. But like black candidates compete with black candidates, Hispanic candidates compete with Hispanic candidates, like white candidates against white candidates. You cannot be in a situation like what I believe it was Jack Posebich who said this, but it wasn't Ben Shapiro, because the idea of Ben Shapiro being in the military is
yeah, Shapiro was never going to join the
Posebich is in the Navy, or he was in the Navy. So. Yeah. And he wanted to go to West Point, if I remember correctly. But I may have been mixed up with somebody else, because like it's just a type. Like that kind of conservative grievance story is just a type. So Cawthorn, you know, is the troop respectingest non-veteran on the planet. If I remember correctly,
he even respects other troops. He went and respected the Nazis by going up to by visiting. Fucking, yeah. He supports every troop. You know, both sides.
There was this very bizarre, because he's, you know, extremely online. He's young. He does TikToks and stuff like that. If I remember correctly, during the January 6th riot, he posted footage of himself basically wheelchairing himself as fast as he could down like Madison Avenue, or down Pennsylvania Avenue or somewhere in DC, basically like, I'm on my way, I'm gonna get, and you're like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? But like he basically posted footage of himself like really aggressively wheeling himself forward in his wheelchair to like as if to suggest that like the fate of America was at hand, and he was, you know, on his way to help, I don't know, overthrow the government. He was kind of on their side.
Dan Blazarian asking a cop for a gun during the Vegas shooting, you know, just give me a fucking gun. I'm coming down.
Dan Bilzerian, yeah. He was YouTube live streaming during the Las Vegas country music festival shooting, where the guy was firing at them from the hotel window, and he basically tried to get a cop to give him a gun so he could help take out the shooter, and the cop was like, shut the fuck up and leave me alone. Like in the middle of a mass shooting. And that to me is definitely a window into a type of guy. But I think the thing with Madison Cawthorn that makes him so interesting is he has to appeal to a boomer plus demographic. He has to appeal to an extremely brain broken by Facebook demographic. And he's obviously right wing. He's obviously the kind of person who, you know, draws heavily from the sort of MAGA Trump 4chan style thing. I don't even know if he's a 4chan poster, but, you know, there's a whole kind of aesthetic and kind of lingo that stems from that stuff, you know, calling things based and things along those lines. And he inhabits that, but he also has to, you know, in order to be an elected Republican representative, you cannot depend solely on, you know, chud millennials and Zoomers who, you know, want to own the libs online. Like you have to get boomers to vote for you. And so he basically has to kind of court that, but it's this constant tension between, you know, doing the things, towing the line that you have to toe to be, you know, a Republican and eat from the Republican feed bag, and wanting to be completely insane, like, you know, just a chaos Zoomer like he is.
He's, let's see, youngest Republican. He wants to be the face of the Republican Party when it comes to healthcare. He refers to Hitler as the Fuhrer. Like, and I mean, look, this dude looks like he was fucking cut out of a like running a Hitler Youth kind of thing. And you know, look, I don't like doing Nazi comparisons because I think they're cheap and lazy. But this guy like really needs to stop being like a cookie cutter fucking Nazi ass looking dude.
Well, yeah, there's this extent to which like you can tell on one hand if it's just unintentional because they're morons, But when
Right.
over and over and over again, it's these constant wink, nudge, nod kinds of things to being like, see, guess what, guys, I'm a Nazi. Like, it's
Mhm.
just, it's both tedious and also upsetting because you realize that, like, that has enough of a constituency that it's not a career ender. And that constituency might very well be growing.
Here we go. In July 2020, at an event at the Texas border, Cawthorn declared without evidence that there was a large group of cartels kidnapping our American children and taking them to sell them on a slave market, a sex slave market. That is just the plot of Rambo 5, which, was an okay movie, but I don't really think that we should make it into policy.
They really are hung up on this idea that that there's like, secret gangs of sex traffickers abducting American children. And it's like, well, there were, but they were all friends with Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. Like when I think about when these things get brought out in daylight, invariably the stuff going on is like, yes, there's been a conspiracy of silence to prevent people knowing about child abuse. It's called, for example, the former Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert.
Mm-hmm.
It's like sometimes the conspiracy theories, like, they aren't wrong in general concept, but they go completely fucking sideways because, especially with QAnon, they are so angry at the Clintons that they have to find a way to involve the Clintons in everything, even when it's the Republican Party, turning a blind eye to the fact that Denny Hastert was both, like, cartoonishly corrupt as a congressman and also as a high school wrestling coach, was widely known to be molesting teen boys. And then once he was retired, he broke the law, lied to the FBI about why he was taking all this money out in cash because he was trying to pay people off blackmail to not go public about him having, molested them when they were 14, 15 years old, when he was their wrestling coach in, like, somewhere in suburban Illinois. Like, it's fucked up, but that was the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the United States. He went to prison. They couldn't get him on the molestation stuff because it was after the statute of limitations, but they got him for lying to the FBI about why he was taking money out, and he went to prison for it. Like, so if you're looking for a conspiracy, there it is. But Madison Cawthorn's got some other stuff.
Yeah, Madison Cawthorn recently discussed cocaine and drug orgies. That there's all these cocaine and drug orgies that are happening in Washington, D.C. that he is totally being invited to, by the way.
I want to read the one from Chris Cillizza on CNN Politics.
Okay, you've got one from...
All right,
Chris.
look.
Okay.
So first, to start out with Chris Cillizza, I just want to say, if you ever see Chris Cillizza's profile picture, the best way I could describe it is he looks like he's trying to dress up as BuzzFeed Benny, as Benny Johnson when he was at BuzzFeed before he got fired for plagiarism. He has this look on his face like, woo-hoo! And it's just, that to me is the depth of Chris Cillizza's analysis of American politics. It's just that noise, that woo-hoo! However, he did notionally write this article. So it's dated 28 March 2022. North Carolina Republican Madison Cawthorn claimed that he had been invited to an orgy in Washington and personally seen leaders in the efforts to curb drug addiction doing cocaine. Cawthorn, who was elected in 2020 as the youngest person ever to serve in Congress, made the comments during an appearance on the, quote, Warrior Poet, unquote, podcast with host John Lovell. Lovell was asking Cawthorn how close the fictitious TV show House of Cards was to real life as a member of Congress, to which Cawthorn said this, quote, the sexual perversion that goes on in Washington, being kind of a young guy in Washington where the average age is probably 60 or 70, you look at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked to all my life, always paid attention to politics, and then all of a sudden you get invited, we're going to have a type of sexual get-together at one of our homes, you should come. What did you just ask me to come to? And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Some of the people leading on the movement to try and remove addiction in our country, and then you watch them do a key bump of cocaine right in front of you, and it's like, this is wild.
This is an 80s fucking key party. Like, what is he describing here? Does this actually happen? Do we like? I don't doubt that there are cocaine orgies happening in Washington D.C. I just feel like they've probably modernized a little bit more. That they're not doing key bumps.
Well, key bump.
Coke.
I mean, I living in the United Kingdom, where anytime you go out on a Friday or Saturday night, you probably will see someone doing a key bump. Which, if you're not familiar with this, taking your key and like your house key, car key, or something like that, and then digging in, get a small amount of cocaine out of a bag, and just doing it right there on the spot. Like that's pretty common here. You see it all the time. So I don't necessarily think that he's incorrect. What I will say, however, is I do not feel as though someone who isn't either doing cocaine a lot or around people doing cocaine a lot would know what the term key bump means. I live in the United Kingdom, probably the most cocaine-loving ass country on the planet. People love doing coke here. It's everywhere. It can be kind of irritating when you're like, it's 6 p.m. on a Friday and I'm in Nando's, but I can't get in the bathroom stall because there's dudes doing coke in the bathroom stall in a chain restaurant at 6 p.m. Like, but...
It's dark at 4:30, man. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a stimulant. They need stuff to give them energy to power through that long winter. But to me, I think the funniest thing about it is like the fake guilelessness. I feel like if you were to say, oh, I'm at the party with like these people who are say they're going to help try to fight addiction and they're, you know, sniffing cocaine off the car key or something like that. That to me is more of the sort of like, I'm a guileless Boy Scout, but describing it as key bumps, it's like, bro, you do coke too. It's fine. Like it's okay. You can admit it. You can admit that you are getting sucked off and doing coke at parties in Washington. Like that's fine. Like,
and see, this is like, I halfway believe, like, I mean, as I said, I definitely believe that there are cocaine orgies happening in Washington, D.C. I mean, I've heard enough stories about you fucking godless coastal people, you know, not like here where we do meth and have sex orgies.
Me? Godless coastal me?
Not you. I mean, like, well, I mean, you were for a while.
I lived in New York for 4 years,
person.
but like, you listen to the way I talk. Do I sound like a New Yorker to you?
Do I sound like I'm walking here? You know, but Madison's young. He's good looking. Like, regardless of what you think about him, he's, you know, young. He's fresh blood. Maybe they're just wanting to kind of mix it up. I mean, look at everybody else in Congress. Like, is there anybody attractive like that gets elected? Of course not. Like,
I mean, there are a couple of people who I would say are very attractive, but I think by and large they look like freaks. There's like 530 odd Congress people, and most of them look like you know, like skin bags that have been inflated way too far and everything is kind of hanging and drooping, and, you know, regrettable fashion choices, regrettable hair choices and things along those lines. But you do get good looking people in Congress here and there. And certainly you get people that like...
The problem is that always gets canceled out by their politics usually.
Well, yeah, it's the phenomenon of the hot Tory, which exists here in this country as well. I would say, I don't want to name names and I don't want to sound sexist, but like I would say that, you know, Madison Cawthorn, you can tell he's pretty good looking. You know, there's some other good looking young Congress people, but like ultimately I think the one grain of truth here is probably that, yeah, the average age is pretty high, so a young person is kind of like an odd curio. I'm going to continue reading this because it's just very funny, the tone that Chris Cillizza, remember, the tone that he takes. All right, so I've ended that quote from Cawthorn. Here's the next paragraph. What? It's not clear to me whether Cawthorn is suggesting that members of Congress have invited him to orgies or just people in Washington. Although, after listening to his comments several times, it seems to be the former. Ditto his allegations of seeing people in Washington doing cocaine. Now, allegations. I just, look, I lived in New York City, even as a Midwesterner who didn't know what drugs looked like. Like, you will encounter people doing drugs. Like, I can only imagine in Washington it's the same way. I never experienced people doing drugs in Washington because I went to dive bars when I would hang out in DC. But like, I knew people who lived in DC, and like they would tell me stories about like friends of theirs who were, you know, people who like worked in the service industry or people who worked in politics, and like they were doing coke. So like, of course, I am sure that the idea that you're like, I can't believe people in Washington do cocaine. Like, look, man, America loves cocaine. We're the biggest consumers of cocaine.
I was gonna say, man, if anything, like this should push a legalization for cocaine forward, because like, look, I don't want to do cocaine. I have no desire to do stimulants. This is not my thing. But like, I don't give a shit if you people want to do cocaine. Like, Let's and here's the problem. When cocaine is illegal, that means that you can't get like good, fair trade cocaine. It's all coming from like slave labor down in the South. So if we legalize cocaine, get some good local cocaineries going on, just like we have local weederees now, like all my weed comes from Missouri, which is fantastic. I'm supporting my local people. Let's do that. Let's get this so that, we no longer have these hangups. Like I want everybody on the godless coast to be doing cocaine. Knock yourselves out. They're all going to get washed away in 50 years anyway. So, live it up a little bit. Not like me in Missouri, where everything is great and wonderful and our politics are perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think my take on it is I don't want to let like the cocaine trafficking industry off the hook in the sense that like it's responsible for a huge amount of human misery. But the overwhelming majority of that is from the fact that coke is illegal, and as such, it's also so profitable that it creates this perverse incentive to commit violence in order to dominate the market. The reason why weed doesn't bring that out, I think, is because like if weed were as insanely valuable and desirable to users, and also not something you could grow in the ground, then you might see that maybe. But coke has the sort of unfortunate status of being a pleasurable drug that people really want to do, that can be trafficked, without a telltale smell or, any kind of like signature besides just being caught and detected. A small amount in terms of like physical size is worth a significant amount on the drug market. And particularly, it's a drug that like makes you stay awake and makes you want to fuck and makes you like sober up. And so it doesn't surprise me that, people who want to party, and let's be honest, I get the impression that, Washington, D.C., inside the halls of power is probably has more in common with fucking the Johnny Depp movie Blow than it does with Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The fact of the matter is, like, coke causes a lot of human misery, but the overwhelming majority of that is because of the fact that, like, enough people want to do it that they're willing to pay the money that generates huge profits that, incentivizes the violence to get it to America or to Europe.
Maybe our elected officials should be like, mandatory coke. I mean, they got to work long hours, and this way, at least I know the playing field is leveled. You can only get elected if you promise to do an 8-ball a week. I don't know how much an 8-ball is. Is that a lot? I don't know.
I think an 8-ball is an eighth of an ounce.
Is that a lot to do in a week?
3.5 grams. Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure like.
We'll say an 8-ball a month. Some of them are kind of old. So, I don't want Chuck Grassley fucking.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Explode.
Imagine Chuck Grassley fucking doing lines of cocaine and then getting on Twitter. Like,
is that not what he's doing though?
No, he's just got weird old man shit. Like he just made this like, chock full of nuts coffee slightly too strong, and that's just how he is as a person. Like that's what being from Iowa will do to you. Or wherever the fuck he's from. Is he from Iowa?
What being from Iowa does to a motherfucker.
Is he from Iowa or like North Dakota? I can't remember. I thought he was from Iowa.
He's definitely got to be from one of our middle states.
I know he's from the Midwest for sure.
That's not a normal brain.
Yeah. That exactly. Like California has its own insane politics, but that 100% is not a Californian. He's from Iowa. I'm correct.
See, and that Iowa, nobody's from Iowa. That's the problem. Anyway.
Well, the point that I'm trying to say here is that when you start looking at drugs and legalization versus whether or not there's too much harm and stuff like that, the thing that I would say is that you start having this uncomfortable discussion about like, well, this drug is just like, taken to extremes. Like it's not really possible to use it safely, and like it will cause, physical, mental, emotional problems. Oh, like alcohol, like if you look at coke and you say you can't legalize cocaine because it'll cause too many health problems, it's like, you mean like alcohol, which is not only legal but like massively promoted and advertised everywhere. And it's like
cigarettes or red meat or many
and also
things
and you look at it and you say,
oh,
you can't use coke because coke is incredibly bad for the environment the way that it's procured. Oh, you mean like rare earth minerals? You mean like coffee? You mean like almond milk?
Yeah, where's my seed oil coming from, guys? Look, there is no ethical consumption of anything under capitalism, and that includes cocaine.
No, I disagree with that shit in the sense that, like, I think that's just no ethical consumption under capitalism can be basically like a means of being annoying or a means of basically justifying any decision you make. And I think the point I'm trying to make here is it's not to be like, see, this is why everyone should just be rolling in fucking cocaine. Because if you make cocaine as available in America and Europe as, say, alcohol is in those places, far more people are going to act like Andy Dick than they presently do. And that's the last thing on earth anyone needs. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when you start going down the line of like, you can't do this because of all the violence in the supply chain. Well, for one, the violence wouldn't exist if it wasn't illegal. But also, like, there's lots of things that we have in our lives, like I say, conflict minerals, obviously conflict gems, but conflict minerals for things like rare earth minerals for cell phones and electronics. Coffee is another one. Basically so much stuff that we appreciate, luxury goods or like fine goods, whether it's chocolates, because they have slave children fucking harvesting cacao, or like gemstones or things along those lines. Every time you start to look at those supply chains, it's like, that too. And ultimately what it comes down to is, I think it's just a moralizing argument. People don't, Coke.
It always is.
Coke is a party drug that makes people do party drug things like drink a lot and fuck and talk a lot. And so it's like kind of Puritan response to it. But I also think that people are going to want to use it no matter what. They have since it was invented. Like you used to be able to buy cocaine in pharmacies in America. Used to be like they had cocaine drops you could buy, like cough drops for when you had a cold,
or heroin if you needed to go up or you needed to go down.
Yeah,
they had something for everybody.
Yeah, and the 1920s equivalent of a 1950s soda jerk mixing you up a speedball, like you just basically could. So I would say that this is the argument is less like I like cocaine and therefore I want to make it legal. I'm really indifferent, but I think that the more you examine it, the more complicated it becomes. Because it's like, this is a bad, you could make an argument this is a bad substance, much like many other bad substances that are completely legal and advertised. And, you can go make a career in whatever industry. Like I'm going to make a career in the fucking coltan industry or some shit. However, Madison Cawthorn, Chris Cillizza, he fucking continues. Either way, Cawthorn is making some very serious allegations here on a podcast with zero, emphasis his, proof or follow-up. You can't just say stuff like this without being asked follow-up questions. Like, who exactly is he talking about, and when did all of this happen? I reached out to Cawthorn's office for comment, but haven't heard back yet. Cawthorn and controversy have gone hand in hand since he was elected to the House seat previously held by Mark Meadows, who was chief of staff for former President Donald Trump. Earlier this month, CNN reported that Cawthorn was facing charges. Earlier this month, CNN reported that Cawthorn was facing charges of driving with a revoked driver's license, the second time he's been flagged for that violation in the last 5 years. Cawthorn also drew negative attention when a video surfaced of a recent speech Cawthorn gave in which he described President Volodymyr Zelensky as, quote, a thug and called the Ukrainian government, quote, incredibly evil, unquote. Cawthorn tried to defuse the situation with a tweet in which he noted that, quote, Putin and Russia are disgusting, unquote, but added that, quote, leaders, including Zelensky, should not push information on America, unquote. In March 2021, CNN reported on a series of allegations of sexual misconduct made against Cawthorn by women who said he behaved inappropriately to them during his college years. Cawthorn has denied any wrongdoing. That's a whole lot for someone who's been in Congress for less than 2 years. The ball on this latest.
What has he done? Has he gotten any laws made? I don't think so. I think he's just like a culture war dude.
The ball on this latest matter is now very much in Cawthorn's court. He's made some very big allegations. Can he back them up? And apparently the House Freedom Caucus is now mad at him because basically
he's saying the quiet things out loud.
Yeah, they basically want him to name names, but I think they actually want him to stop talking because
Yep. What this all comes it is if you're not like I don't understand what his point here is, because it's very it's very much kind of like what Josh Hawley does on occasion, where he just occasionally remembers oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be a populist, and then just decides to have some weird and also we need to support workers and be really big into unions. It's the same thing where he's just I don't know exactly what he's doing, except that on occasion he's just oh, and also everything's corrupt and there's a bunch of cocaine orgies going on. And then everybody's just shut the fuck up about the cocaine orgies. Just talk about the bad things the Democrats do. Don't talk about the bad things that we do. Which, I mean, I'm sure there's cocaine orgies happening with the Democrats, too. It's just Madison doesn't get invited to those.
I also kind of wonder, who among the Democrats would be the ones, throwing big rager parties? You know what I mean? because like the thought crossed my mind, like, okay, can you imagine like Nancy Pelosi just being like, all right, we're all going to do ketamine now? Like maybe that would explain Good Morning Sunday Morning. Maybe she was still in a K-hole.
Could be. Just look, I support all of you guys, all of these politicians doing as much blow as they want, because it'll probably keep them busy. But Madison Cawthorn loves to talk shit. He loves to say things, as I had said, he told people that, kids were getting trafficked across the Mexican border, like out of your random Walmarts and stuff. Like he just makes shit up. He's probably making this up too. The problem is that, when you make up things like your kids are getting kidnapped and sold to Mexican cartels, you don't really have to back that up. That's just a fear-mongering thing. When you say my fellow Republicans are doing blow and fucking each other at key parties that I've been invited to, but I said, no way, I would never do anything like that. That's gonna blow back on you. And I don't
it's
know.
Very funny. He didn't say key parties, but that would be even funnier if like the Republicans were literally doing wife swapping parties. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. I just think that that might be an echelon of insider access that Madison Cawthorn has not yet achieved. If that makes sense,
right? He's a freshman. Like, this dude talks so much shit. I wouldn't be, if I was a Republican congressperson or senator, I wouldn't want this fucking mouth gum flapping OPSEC dude anywhere near me. Like, I wouldn't want to say
exactly.
anything.
Nobody give him any actual real drugs. He can only have baby powder. Like, fucking keep him away.
Like, maybe this was something that was fed to him. Like, they were like, okay, we got to draw straws. One of us has to invite Cawthorn to a cocaine sex party so that he goes on and starts talking about it so we can finally fucking stamp this dude out. Because, like, honestly, like, this all would have worked if Trump had, like, won and kept being in power. And now you've just got people like this and Bobbert and Marjorie, whoever, just fucking flailing and with nowhere to fall at this point. And this is the kind of shit that we have. And if Trump was still in power, this would be perfectly fine. It would fly. He would, be talking about doing cocaine and doing sex parties with Trump, and everybody would be fine with it. But they kind of fucked up. And the playbook for these guys has kind of gone out the window, but they didn't really know what to keep doing with it going forward. And so now they're all going to be challenged. And I don't know if, Madison Cawthorn can be unseated in a primary or, by a Democrat in his area. I don't know enough about North Carolina's 11th district beyond, what the demographics of Wikipedia tells me. What I will say though is that this is just like another part of the ever expanding tapestry of Madison Cawthorn, who in less than 2 years has managed to be one of the most controversial people, one of the biggest assholes, and I don't think anybody likes him. But that has not stopped him. He's a successful Jacob Wohl, is where this is.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
If Jacob Wohl had been successful and gone somewhere, or who's the dude that's running in Ohio that's insane? Not J.D. Vance, but the other guy who's running against him, because J.D. Vance is also insane. But anyway,
I know exactly who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about.
Josh Mandel?
Yes, Mandel, who is somehow even more insane than Cawthorn. And when these are the only options that you're being given for people running, that's what ends up happening. But I don't think that this is going to work out well for him going forward. Maybe he's going to get primaried. Maybe he's going to get voted out. I don't know if that's going to make it any better, because he's not in the House anymore, I think that he's going to get even crazier, which part of me is excited about, honestly. Madison Cawthorn's not going anywhere. If he gets voted out, he's still going to be out there saying some of the most insane, dumbest shit in the world. And looking forward to that, honestly. Looking forward to even more. Because you know what? If he gets kicked out and he decides that every Republican that doesn't back him is now a rhino, he is absolutely going to start naming names. And either he's going to give us a treasure trove of fantastic information that nobody will do anything with. Nobody will go to jail because, it's America. Or he's going to get shoved down some steps and going to get more paralyzed by somebody.
That is
by some
very
Republican
possible.
staffer.
Yeah, I mean, they are pretty ruthless. They're better at being ruthless than the Democrats are. That's for damn sure.
It is.
All right, so Francis, for this week's bonus, you guys got the Zoo Crew together and you solicited advice. Well, rather, you found advice columns online and read some of the fucked up problems. So maybe tell everyone about this.
Our second time doing this. I figured that Joe and Carrie and I have wealths of knowledge, in our own respective ways, and that we have information that we can give. And so I found, and like I said, this is the second time. We have 2 bonus episodes with this now of us talking about, reading advice columns and really digging in and finding answers to like what to do when you find out your son has been looking up like Pokemon themed pornography. Those are questions that need to be answered. So we're here to do that for you.
I mean, I'll be honest with both of you. I think I'm probably only like 1 or 2 like townie levels away from probably being in a group chat with like Ed Markey or something. Like I'm not. I don't think I'm that far away from it at this point. I'm really just
get back to me when you're in a group chat with Ben Affleck.
I mean, he used to come into my the store my ex-girlfriend worked at back in
was
like
it a Dunkin's?
No, it was a doggy daycare out in Cambridge somewhere.
Okay, what is it about Bostonians and Dunkins? Because I have a Dunkin' Donuts and it's fine. We have many Dunkin' Donuts. You guys don't. Why is it such a big thing for you guys?
It's like the native place, right? Like it's from Boston or Mass.
Yeah, like the first Dunkin' is in Quincy. Like I've gone to it before.
It just I mean, I can buy drugs from it.
That's like that's the Bostonian Hodge is going to the first Dunkin's.
Which is funny though, because like if you look at like Starbucks, like if you go to the one in like Pike's Place Market or shit, and like people like line up around the block to like go to like the original Starbucks, and it's like fucking dumb.
It is the fucking Hodge for shitty like NIMBYs from the suburbs. I've seen it.
And so like the perspective, and I think it well describes the difference because like the first Dunkin' is just like a place that's next to a Stop and Shop across from a Ford dealership that you occasionally go to get coffee. No one gives a shit. And so I feel like similarly, like it's not that anyone really cares all that much. It just it's good serviceable coffee everywhere you go. That's
really Michigan and Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is fine.
Like it's not great. It's fine. It's like it's not the best coffee I've ever had in my life, but it's fine.
Not. Yeah,
it's there.
I would not defend Tim Hortons other than it is better than Starbucks, but that's a very low fucking bar.
You know what you're getting when you show up there.
It's fine. It's good. It's cheap. It's accessible. It's reliable. Like it's not. It's fine. It's just like fine coffee, and it just so New England is a place where it's cold for like fucking 8 months out of the year. So being able to get a reliable cup of hot coffee is like a solid time.
Wait. I think I could bring this back around. Wait, I have an idea. If you want to make friends as an adult, go to Dunkin' Donuts.
I mean, actually,
start hanging out at Dunkies.
Yeah, to be honest, there are like some of them, particularly if you like go out to kind of like the exurbs, there are like, you'll see like, groups of old guys who are just like hanging out at the Dunkin' because community centers don't exist anymore in America, so they have to hang out somewhere to get out of the house, and so they just like hang around the Dunkin' Donuts. And maybe if it's like if you're up in like Lowell, it'll just be like a bunch of old Cambodian dudes just like hanging out.
I should go to the first Panera Bread that's in St. Louis.
Is that where Panera Bread's from?
I have no idea.
In here it's called St. Louis Bread Company because that's what it originally started as.
Weird. Yeah. That's very strange.
Is it? Why?
I don't know.
Things happen here. Things.
I just assume that nothing good came from St. Louis.
We have Nelly and an arch.
Like I said,
that might be the whitest thing.
Okay, you have
ever heard you say.
Right, so
it's like
we have the entire Motown genre of music.
Things happen here. We have Nelly.
Like St. Louis, I'm sorry, man. Blues is fucking St. Louis is one of, it doesn't matter. This is a fucking dumb argument.
I know that blues came from Chicago. What are you talking about?
I always thought it was like a Muncie, Indiana vibe.
I mean, it's Gary, Indiana more.
I'd always kind of assumed that Panera came from like, I don't know, maybe like Denver or something.
It does feel like it
feels like a Colorado Spring thing.
Yeah, it feels like it was like created like where somebody was bored because they had nothing else to do and was like, I don't know, I'll bake some bread and put some shit on it. Here you go, it's a bread company.
It's like a factory for coming up with ideas for gentrified white neighborhoods.
Yeah, like if redlining came together to create a restaurant and it was Panera Bread.
Which is funny because the Panera in my neighborhood ended up closing down and we are not a gentrified neighborhood. So That tracks at least.
Maybe
with
they're
my one
working in
experience.
reverse to make sure they don't like. Wait, nope, we can't be here.
Yeah, congrats, Francis, on driving him out of town. Good work.
But I mean, what are you talking about? I am the gentrifier.
Apparently, you're not white enough. They found out the.
Thank you, Carrie.
They found these goddamn papists are just overrunning the fucking neighborhood.
I'm just glad we can center POC voices like Francis.
I did 23andMe, and it was just like all England, all Europe. It's just like, here, you are fucking white as shit.
I did a 23andMe, and I found out that I'm more Armenian than I thought I was, but also Kurdish. I was like, oh, all right.
I did 23andMe and found out I'm Elizabeth Warren, so that was a shock to me.
So following your blood quantum test.
Anyway, everybody, thank you for listening. You can follow me at Army Strang, follow Nate at In These Deserts, and follow the podcast at Hell of a Way. We are very grateful for all the support that you give. Very grateful for everything that you stick around with us doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for being listeners. Thank you so much for being Patreon supporters. If you are considering being a Patreon supporter, just remember all the bonus content dating back to 2016 is available on the $5 tier. So there's a lot of content. Yeah, exactly. And we really appreciate your listenership, and we will talk to you soon.